Most men's midlife crisis involves a Harley-Davidson and a 20-something blonde. Mine started with discovering my wife was screwing the soccer coach while I was fixing broken hospital equipment in a basement that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Calloway, and I'm 42 years old. I work as an electrician at Riverside General Hospital in Cedar Lake, Illinois, a town so small that everyone knows when you buy hemorrhoid cream at the pharmacy. For the past 18 years, I've been married to Lila, who owns a boutique called Lakeside Luxe that sells overpriced scarves to tourists who think they're getting authentic small-town charm. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning in September. I was drinking my coffee, reading about another political scandal in the Chicago Tribune, when Lila announced she was starting a new fitness routine. "I'm joining that new gym downtown," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Patty says they have excellent evening classes." I nearly choked on my coffee. Lila's idea of exercise was walking from the couch to the refrigerator during commercial breaks. "Since when do you care about fitness?" "Since I realized I'm almost 40 and my metabolism isn't what it used to be." She finally looked at me and I noticed she was wearing makeup at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday. "The gym's open at night?" 24 hours. Very convenient for busy professionals. Busy professionals. Right. Lila's boutique closed at 6, and she was usually home by 6:30, complaining about her feet and demanding I massage them, while she watched reality TV shows about housewives throwing wine at each other. Over the next few weeks, the changes became impossible to ignore. Lila started showering before work instead of after. She bought new underwear, lacy stuff I never saw her wear. Her phone, which used to sit on the kitchen counter like a forgotten paperweight, became surgically attached to her hand. She'd smile at it, type messages with the intensity of a war correspondent, and angle the screen away whenever I walked by. The gym sessions became a nightly ritual. She'd leave at 10 p.m., claiming the evening classes were less crowded. She'd return around midnight, claiming she'd stayed for the sauna and a protein smoothie. "Funny thing about that gym?" I mentioned one Thursday evening. "I drove past it yesterday around 11:30. Parking lot was emptier than a church on Super Bowl Sunday." Lila didn't even look up from her phone. "Maybe people park in the back." "Maybe." "I work in a hospital basement, surrounded by the mechanical heartbeat of machines that keep people alive. You learn to notice when something's not functioning properly. The subtle changes in rhythm, the slight variations in sound that signal impending failure. My marriage was throwing off all the wrong signals." The breakthrough came courtesy of Marlene Henderson, my 70-year-old neighbor who has elevated nosiness to an art form. Marlene lives across the street in a house with more windows than a lighthouse, and she considers neighborhood surveillance her civic duty. She knocked on my door on a Saturday morning while Lila was at the boutique doing inventory. "Ethan, honey, we need to talk." Marlene was wearing her serious expression, the one she usually reserved for discussing property taxes and teenagers parking on her lawn. "What's up, Marlene?" "It's about Lila." She glanced around like she was sharing state secrets. "I saw her yesterday morning, around 9. She was walking down Maple Street with a man." My stomach dropped like a broken elevator. "What kind of man?" "Tall, brown hair, but the kind of brown that comes from a bottle, if you know what I mean. They were holding hands, Ethan, walking real close like honeymooners." I forced my voice to stay steady. "Maybe it was a customer. She sometimes meets clients outside the boutique." Marlene gave me the look she reserved for people who believed professional wrestling was real. "Honey, I've seen you walk with Lila plenty of times. This wasn't business." That afternoon, while Lila was at Patty's house allegedly planning a boutique expansion, I asked Marlene if she'd mind keeping an extra eye on things. Within an hour, she texted me a photo that made me freeze. The picture showed Lila and a man entering the Lakeside Cabin Rentals, a collection of romantic getaways that advertised discretion and charm for discerning couples. The man was tall, athletic, with a kind of artificially casual style that screamed former athlete trying to stay relevant. I recognized him immediately, Joel Drayton, the high school soccer coach, 33 years old, divorced, and apparently very discerning about married women. I sat in my truck outside the cabin complex for 2 hours that evening, watching through binoculars I'd borrowed from Marlene's late husband's hunting gear. At 11:15, they emerged from cabin 7. Joel had his arm around Lila's waist. She was laughing, her head thrown back in a way I hadn't seen in years. They kissed before getting into separate cars. Not a polite peck, but the kind of kiss that belongs in bedrooms, not parking lots. I drove home in a fog of rage and humiliation, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. When Lila arrived home at midnight, claiming exhaustion from her intense workout, I was sitting in the dark living room, still wearing my jacket. "How was the gym?" I asked. "Good, really good. I'm getting stronger every day." "I bet you are." She headed upstairs without another word. I stayed in the dark, listening to the house settle around me, planning my next move. The following morning, while Lila was showering, I went through her purse. Hidden behind her driver's license was a receipt from Lakeside Cabin Rentals. $600 for a romantic weekend package. Apparently, polyester blend sheets cost extra. I've rewired enough hospital equipment to know that electrical problems don't fix themselves. They get worse, spreading through the system until everything shorts out in spectacular fashion. My marriage was about to experience a complete power failure, and I was going to control every spark. The first step was gathering evidence. 20 years of fixing things had taught me the value of proper documentation. I opened a savings account at a different bank and started collecting proof like I was building a case for the FBI. Bank statements showed regular cash withdrawals that coincided with Lila's gym sessions. Her credit card revealed purchases at restaurants I'd never been to, lingerie stores, and a jewelry shop downtown where she'd bought a men's watch. Definitely not my style. Marlene became my unofficial surveillance partner, approaching the task with the enthusiasm of a retired CIA operative. She invested in a telephoto lens and started a detailed log of Lila's activities. According to Marlene's meticulous notes, Lila and Joel met at the cabins every Tuesday and Thursday, with occasional weekend business trips that involved a lot of hand-holding and not much business. "That boy's got no sense," Marlene observed during one of our strategy sessions in her kitchen, parking his car right out front like he's delivering pizza. In my day, affairs required more creativity. "Your day had affairs?" "Honey, the 1960s didn't invent free love. We just gave it a better soundtrack. I was documenting everything, but documentation wasn't enough. Joel Drayton was about to learn that messing with another man's wife came with consequences. The soccer coach drove a red Mustang convertible that he parked in the school lot like a trophy. It was his pride and joy, waxed and detailed every weekend, the automotive equivalent of a peacock's tail feathers. On a Wednesday evening, while Joel was inside the school running a parent-teacher conference about fundraising, I paid his car a visit. I didn't damage anything. I'm not a vandal. I'm an electrician. Using supplies from the hospital maintenance closet, I installed a small device under his dashboard connected to the horn. Then I rigged his starter with a bypass that would make the engine turn over on the third try instead of the first. Nothing dangerous, just inconvenient. The real masterpiece was the smell. Hospital-grade stink bombs, the kind used for evacuation drills, carefully placed in his air conditioning vents. When Joel started his car the next morning, he'd get a full sensory experience. I was drinking coffee in the diner across from the school when Joel emerged from the building, keys in hand, looking like a man who owned the world. He climbed into his Mustang, turned the key, and nothing happened. Second try, nothing. Third try, the engine roared to life, immediately followed by Joel's car horn blaring the opening notes of "Your Cheatin' Heart" at maximum volume while the stink bomb released its aromatic payload. Joel jumped out of the car like it was on fire, gagging and waving his hands. The horn kept playing Hank Williams while half the school faculty gathered to watch. Joel frantically popped the hood, looking for a problem he'd never find because the device was hidden behind the dashboard. It took him 20 minutes to disconnect the car battery, by which time everyone within 3 blocks knew Joel Drayton's car had developed a sense of humor and a serious odor problem. Phase 2 involved Joel's professional reputation. I'd done some research and discovered that Cedar Lake High School had very strict policies about faculty conduct, especially regarding relationships that might compromise their judgment. I didn't make any accusations. I simply sent an anonymous email to the school board suggesting they might want to review Mr. Drayton's recent behavior, particularly his evening activities and his relationship with certain community members. I included no names, no specific allegations, just enough concern to trigger an investigation. The school board takes these things seriously. Within a week, Joel was suspended pending a full review of his conduct. Meanwhile, Lila's world was starting to develop some electrical problems of its own. I'd been managing our finances for 18 years, handling the mortgage, utilities, and credit cards, while Lila focused on her boutique. She never paid much attention to the details, trusting me to keep everything running smoothly. That trust was about to become inconvenient for her. I froze our joint checking account, citing suspicious activity, which wasn't entirely untrue. I canceled her credit cards, claiming identity theft concerns. I transferred our savings into the new account she didn't know about. Lila discovered these changes on a Friday afternoon when her card was declined at the grocery store. She called me from the parking lot, her voice tight with embarrassment and anger. Ethan, what's wrong with our accounts? My card isn't working. Really? That's strange. Maybe there's a problem with the bank's computer system. This is humiliating. Mrs. Patterson was standing right behind me in line. Mrs. Patterson was the town's unofficial gossip coordinator. By evening, half of Cedar Lake would know Lila Calloway couldn't pay for her groceries. I'll call the bank first thing Monday morning, I promised. Monday? What am I supposed to do until then? I've got about $40 cash. That should cover the essentials. The silence on the other end of the line was worth every moment of planning. That evening, Lila skipped her gym session for the first time in weeks. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table with our bank statements spread out like tarot cards, trying to understand what had happened to our financial stability. Ethan, these numbers don't make sense. We should have more money than this. I looked over her shoulder at the statements, which showed our joint account before I'd moved everything. Looks right to me. Maybe you're thinking of a different account. What different account? I don't know. You tell me. She stared at me with the expression of someone trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. For the first time in months, Lila was actually looking at me instead of her phone. Is everything okay with us? She asked. I met her eyes directly. Why wouldn't it be? You seem different lately. Different how? I don't know. Distant. I'm sitting right here. That's not what I mean. Then maybe you should figure out what you do mean. She gathered up the bank statements and headed upstairs without another word. I stayed in the kitchen, listening to her footsteps overhead, waiting for the next phase to begin. Monday morning brought more complications for both Lila and Joel. The bank informed Lila that the account freeze was due to suspicious activity and would require additional documentation to resolve. Joel discovered that his suspension had become the talk of the town, with rumors spreading faster than a grease fire. I was having the best week I'd had in years. The beauty of small-town gossip is that it spreads like electricity through a faulty circuit, fast, unpredictable, and capable of burning down everything in its path. By the third week of October, Cedar Lake was buzzing with speculation about Joel Drayton's suspension and Lila's financial troubles. I wasn't just watching the chaos unfold, I was conducting it like a symphony of revenge. Marlene had expanded her surveillance operation to include Patty Morrison, Lila's best friend and boutique assistant. Patty was a 35-year-old divorcee who treated other people's drama like premium entertainment. She was also terrible at keeping secrets, which made her perfect for my purposes. That woman talks more than a radio DJ, Marlene reported during our Thursday morning coffee session. Yesterday I heard her at the post office telling anyone who'd listen that Lila's having money problems and marriage issues. What kind of marriage issues? The usual nonsense. Distant husband, communication problems, feeling unappreciated. She made it sound like you were the villain in some romance novel. I stirred my coffee slowly, considering this development. What else did she say? She mentioned that Lila's been finding comfort with a friend who understands her better. Didn't name names, but she got that smug look people get when they think they know something juicy. Patty's loose tongue was about to become a liability for everyone involved. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Riverside General's IT department. Danny Chen was a 20-something computer wizard who owed me several favors for fixing his apartment's electrical problems during his broke college years. I need to recover some deleted files from my home computer, I told him. Family photos that got accidentally erased. Danny was happy to help. The software he gave me could recover deleted data from any device, including text messages and photos from smartphones. Wednesday evening, while Lila was at Patty's house planning what she called a boutique revival strategy, I used Danny's software on her laptop. The deleted files told a story more detailed than any novel. Months of text messages between Lila and Joel painted a picture of calculated deception. They'd been planning their affair since July, discussing when I'd be at work, which hotels offered the best discretion, and how to keep their relationship secret. But the most interesting discovery was a series of messages between Lila and Patty discussing their long-term strategy. They weren't just planning an affair, they were planning my replacement. E is so predictable. One message read, same routine every day. He'll never suspect anything until it's too late. When are you going to tell him? Patty had replied. After the holidays. I want to make sure Jay is ready to commit before I blow up my marriage. Another message thread revealed their financial planning. The boutique is in my name, the house has equity, and E's pension will split in the divorce. I'll be fine. They'd been planning to destroy my life while I fixed their electrical problems and paid their bills. The level of calculation was breathtaking. I printed everything. Thursday morning, I called in sick to work. The first sick day I'd taken in 3 years. Instead of going to the hospital, I drove to the office of Patricia Williams, the best divorce attorney in the county. Patricia was a 60-year-old woman with silver hair and the personality of a shark in a business suit. She'd handled half the divorces in Cedar Lake, including several that had left cheating spouses financially devastated. "Mr. Calloway," she said, reviewing the evidence I'd brought, "this is quite comprehensive. Your wife and her boyfriend have been very thorough in documenting their deception. What are my options? In Illinois, we have no-fault divorce, but adultery can still impact property division and spousal support. With this level of evidence, you're in an excellent position. I want to file immediately." "Are you sure?" "Once we start this process, there's no going back." "I've been going back for months. It's time to move forward." Patricia smiled like a predator who'd spotted wounded prey. "I'll have the papers ready by Monday." That evening, Lila returned from her gym session to find me waiting in the living room with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "This is nice," she said, surprised. "What's the occasion?" "I thought we should talk." She sat down carefully like someone approaching a potentially dangerous animal. "About what?" "About us. About our marriage. About the future." "Okay." She accepted the wine glass but didn't drink. "What about the future?" "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about me being distant." "And?" "You're right. I have been distant, but maybe there's a reason for that." Lila's face went pale. "What kind of reason?" "Maybe I've been sensing that something's changed between us, that we're not as connected as we used to be." "Ethan, let me finish." I took a sip of wine, watching her over the rim of the glass. "I think we both know this marriage isn't working the way it should. We're like 2 people living separate lives in the same house. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time we did anything together besides watch TV?" She was quiet for a long moment. "People grow apart sometimes. It doesn't mean the marriage is over. Doesn't it?" "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should consider whether we're both getting what we need from this relationship." Lila set down her wine glass with shaking hands. "Are you talking about divorce?" "I'm talking about honesty. I've been honest with you." I almost laughed. "Have you?" "Yes." "So if I asked you where you really go when you claim to be at the gym, you'd tell me the truth?" The color drained from her face completely. "I go to the gym." "Which gym?" "The one downtown." "What's it called?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. It's called Fitness Plus." "Fitness Plus closed 6 months ago, Lila. The building's empty." The silence stretched between us like a live wire. Lila looked like someone who'd just realized she was standing in quicksand. "I can explain," she whispered. "I'm sure you can. But here's the thing. I don't want to hear it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I already know about Joel Drayton. I know about the cabin rentals. I know about your plans to divorce me after the holidays. I know everything." Lila started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of panic, the kind people shed when they realize their carefully constructed lies are collapsing. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough?" "What are you going to do?" I stood up, leaving my wine glass on the coffee table. "I'm going to bed. You should probably call Patty. You're going to need someone to talk to." I left her sitting in the living room, sobbing into her hands, while I went upstairs to pack a bag. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. Friday morning arrived with a kind of crisp October air that makes everything seem sharper, more defined. I'd spent the night at a hotel downtown, giving Lila time to make whatever calls she needed to make. By the time I returned home at 8 a.m., she was gone, leaving behind a note that said she was staying with Patty to think things through. Perfect. That would make serving the divorce papers much more dramatic. I called Patricia Williams to confirm everything was ready, then drove to the hospital for what I knew would be my last normal day at work for a while. Ed Haskins, my supervisor, was waiting in the maintenance office with coffee and the expression of someone who'd heard interesting gossip. "Ethan, we need to talk." Ed was 54 years old, built like a retired linebacker, and had worked at Riverside General for 30 years. He'd been my mentor when I started, teaching me everything from basic wiring to hospital politics. If anyone deserved to hear the truth from me directly, it was Ed. "What's on your mind?" "I heard some rumors around town, something about you and Lila having problems." "Where'd you hear that?" "My wife plays bridge with Janice Hawthorne. Apparently Lila's been confiding in people about your marriage being in trouble." Janice Hawthorne was a town council member and one of Lila's boutique customers. She was also married to the bank president, which meant she had access to financial gossip that most people didn't. "What kind of confiding?" The kind where you're painted as an inattentive husband who doesn't appreciate his wife's needs? I laughed, surprising both of us. Ed, my wife has been having an affair with the high school soccer coach for the past 4 months. She's been planning to divorce me since summer, and she's been telling people I'm the problem in our marriage. So yes, we're having problems. Ed's coffee mug stopped halfway to his mouth. Jesus Christ, Ethan. Are you sure? I've got text messages, photos, bank records, and hotel receipts. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. What do you need from me? Nothing. Just wanted you to hear it from me before the gossip mill gets completely out of control. Anything I can do to help? Actually, yes. Can you make sure I'm scheduled for overtime this weekend? I'm going to need the money for legal fees. Ed nodded grimly. Consider it done. And Ethan, I'm sorry this happened to you. Thanks. But honestly, I'm not sorry it's happening. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out. That afternoon, Patricia Williams called with an update. The papers are ready, and I've arranged for service tomorrow morning. Is your wife still staying with her friend? As far as I know. Good. My process server will find her at the friend's house. It's more dramatic that way. Dramatic? Trust me, Mr. Calloway. In a town this size, you want the divorce filing to make an impression. It establishes the narrative before your wife can spin the story her way. Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee at the diner downtown when my phone started buzzing with text messages. The first was from Marlene. Holy shit, Ethan. There's a cop car at Patty's house. The second was from my neighbor, Tom. Heard Lila got served with papers this morning. Everything okay? The third was from Danny in IT. Dude, my girlfriend works at the courthouse. Says you filed for divorce with enough evidence to sink a battleship. I ordered another cup of coffee and waited for the real fireworks to begin. They didn't take long. At 10:30 a.m., Lila stormed into the diner like a woman possessed. Her hair was uncombed, she wasn't wearing makeup, and she had the wild-eyed look of someone who'd been crying for hours. How could you do this to me? She shouted, loud enough for everyone in the restaurant to hear. I looked up from my newspaper calmly. Do what? You know what. The divorce papers, the accusations. You're trying to destroy me. I'm trying to end our marriage. There's a difference. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen, which displayed one of her text messages to Joel. E is working late tonight. Meet me at the usual place at 9. Her face went white. You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. This is illegal. You can't use stolen messages in court. They're not stolen. They're recovered from our shared computer, which I have every legal right to access. By now, everyone in the diner was watching our conversation like it was a live performance. Lila seemed to realize this and lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers and courts and all this drama. You're right. We don't need drama. That's why I'm handling this quietly and legally. Quietly? You had me served at Patty's house. The whole neighborhood saw. Where did you expect to be served? At the cabin with Joel? She slapped me, hard. The sound echoed through the diner like a gunshot. I touched my cheek, which was stinging, and looked at her with what I hoped was calm disappointment. Feel better? You bastard. Mrs. Calloway, said a voice from behind her. I think you should leave. We both turned to see Detective Ray Sanders, a 49-year-old cop who'd grown up in Cedar Lake and had zero patience for public disturbances. This is between me and my husband, Lila said. Not anymore, it isn't. You just committed assault in front of 20 witnesses. He's destroying my life. Ma'am, your husband filed for divorce, which is legal. You slapped him in public, which isn't. I suggest you leave before I have to arrest you. Lila looked around the diner, seeming to notice for the first time that everyone was staring at her. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but turned back for one final shot. This isn't over, Ethan. Yeah, it is. After she left, Detective Sanders sat down across from me. You okay? I'm fine. Want to press charges? No, she's having a bad day. I heard about the divorce. Sorry, man. Thanks. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than most guys would. Most guys don't have 18 years to prepare. Sanders laughed. Fair point. You need anything, give me a call. After he left, I finished my coffee in peace while the other customers gradually returned to their own conversations. The story of Lila's public meltdown would be all over town by evening, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. My phone buzzed with a text from Joel Drayton. We need to talk. I typed back, No, we don't. This affects me too. Should have thought of that before you started sleeping with my wife. Meet me at the school parking lot. 1 hour. Or what? Or I'll tell everyone what kind of husband you really were. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, See you in an hour. It was time for the final confrontation. The Cedar Lake High School parking lot was empty, except for Joel's red Mustang, which still smelled faintly of stink bomb despite multiple detailings. I pulled up next to it and waited, watching Joel pace back and forth like a caged animal. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his coaching jacket was wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed appearance of someone who hadn't slept in days. The suspension had clearly taken its toll. I got out of my truck slowly, making no sudden movements. Joel was younger and stronger than me, but he was also desperate, which made him unpredictable. "Thanks for coming," he said. "You said you had something to tell me." "I do." He stopped pacing and faced me directly. "I want you to know that what happened between Lila and me wasn't planned. It just happened." "Things like that don't just happen, Joel. They're choices. You don't understand. Your wife was lonely, neglected. She needed someone who appreciated her. And that someone was you? I cared about her. I still do." I laughed, surprising both of us. "You cared about her? Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back for 4 months? If you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." "There it is," I said. "The real Joel Drayton. It's my fault you screwed my wife." "You were never there for her. Always working, always tired, always taking her for granted." "I was working to pay for the house where she was planning to replace me. I was tired because I was supporting a woman who was spending our money on hotel rooms with another man, and I was taking her for granted because I trusted her not to betray 18 years of marriage." Joel's face flushed red. "She deserved better than you." "Maybe she did, but she didn't deserve better than honesty. Neither did I." "What do you want from me, Ethan? An apology?" "I don't want anything from you. You've already given me everything I needed." "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. "It means you and Lila documented your entire affair in text messages. Every lie, every plan, every detail of how you were going to destroy my life. My lawyer says it's the most comprehensive adultery case she's ever seen." Joel's face went pale. "You can't use those in court." "Actually, I can. They were recovered from equipment I own, in a house I pay for, from accounts I manage. Perfectly legal." "This will ruin me." "You should have thought of that before you started this. I could lose my job permanently, my reputation, my career, everything." "Welcome to consequences." Joel stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You smug bastard. You think you're so much better than me?" "I think I'm honest. There's a difference." "You want to know the truth? Lila told me things about you, about your marriage, about how pathetic you are in bed, how boring you are, how she's been faking it for years." The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "Did she tell you she was planning to take half my pension and leave you for someone with more money?" Joel's confident expression faltered. "What?" "Check her messages from last week. She was already planning your replacement. Some guy she met at a real estate conference in Chicago." "You're lying." "Am I? Ask her about David Morrison from Morrison Properties. Ask her about their dinner plans next month." And Joel's face cycled through confusion, anger, and dawning realization. "She wouldn't." "She would. She did. You were never the end game, Joel. You were just the exit strategy." "I don't believe you." I shrugged. "Believe whatever makes you feel better. But you might want to ask yourself why she hasn't returned your calls since yesterday." That hit home. Joel's shoulders sagged like someone had let the air out of him. "She hasn't been answering her phone," he admitted, "because she's already moving on to the next phase of her plan. You served your purpose." We stood in silence for a moment, two men who'd been played by the same woman in different ways. "What happens now?" Joel asked. "Now you live with your choices. Same as me." "The school board meets Monday. They're going to fire me." "Probably." "I'll have to leave town, start over somewhere else." "Probably." "And you? What do you get out of all this?" I considered the question. "I get my life back. I get to stop pretending my marriage was something it wasn't. I get to stop lying to myself about being happy." Was it worth it? Destroying everything. "I didn't destroy anything, Joel. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." Joel walked back to his car without another word. As he drove away, I noticed the "Your Cheatin' Heart" device was still working. The horn played a few bars as he left the parking lot. Monday morning brought the final act of our small-town drama. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m., and by 9:30, the courthouse was packed with more spectators than most trials attracted. Lila arrived with a lawyer she'd hired over the weekend, a young guy from the county seat who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She'd cleaned herself up since Saturday's diner incident, but she still had the haunted look of someone who'd realized their carefully constructed world was collapsing. Patricia Williams was in her element, presenting evidence with the precision of a surgeon and the theatrical flair of a prosecutor. The text messages, photos, financial records, and witness statements painted a picture of calculated deception that left no room for doubt. Your Honor, Patricia concluded, Mrs. Calloway didn't just commit adultery. She planned and executed a systematic betrayal of her marriage while using marital assets to fund her affair. The evidence shows clear intent to deceive and defraud. Lila's lawyer tried to argue that the evidence was obtained improperly, but Judge Margaret Foster, a 60-year-old woman who'd been handling family law for 25 years, wasn't impressed. The evidence was obtained from jointly owned property and accounts, Judge Foster ruled. It's admissible. The property division was swift and decisive. Lila got the boutique, which was in her name, and her personal belongings. I got the house, the retirement accounts, and most of our savings. No spousal support was awarded. Mrs. Calloway, Judge Foster said, adultery may not be grounds for divorce in Illinois, but it certainly affects how marital property is divided. Your actions demonstrated a clear intent to defraud your husband, and this court will not reward that behavior. As we left the courthouse, Lila tried one last time to approach me. Ethan, wait. I stopped on the courthouse steps, surrounded by half the town who'd come to watch the proceedings. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. For which part? The affair, the lies, or getting caught? For all of it. I made mistakes. You made choices. Can we try to be civil? For Owen's sake? Our 16-year-old son had been staying with his grandparents during the worst of the drama, but he'd have to come home eventually and deal with his parents' destroyed marriage. I'll be civil, I said, but I won't pretend we're friends. What about forgiveness? Don't you believe in second chances? I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd been married to for 18 years, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my trust. I believe in consequences, I said finally, and I believe in learning from mistakes. You taught me that some things, once broken, can't be fixed. So that's it? 18 years, and it just ends? It ended months ago, Lila. I just finally stopped pretending otherwise. She walked away crying, surrounded by Patty and a few other friends who'd remained loyal. I watched her go, feeling nothing but relief. Marlene appeared at my elbow, grinning like someone who'd just won the lottery. Well, she said, that was better than cable TV. Thanks for all your help. Honey, that was the most excitement I've had since my husband tried to fix the roof and ended up in the emergency room. You did good. I did what I had to do. Same thing. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, looking out at the lake and thinking about the future. The house was quiet. The phone wasn't ringing, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed with a text from Owen. Dad, are you okay? I typed back, I'm better than okay. I'm free. When can I come home? Whenever you want. This is still your house. What about Mom? Your mom will always be your mom, but she won't be living here anymore. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for other people's choices, son. Just learn from them. I love you, Dad. I love you too. I put the phone away and finished my beer, watching the sun set over the water. Tomorrow I'd go back to work, back to fixing things that were broken, back to my life in the hospital basement. But tonight I was going to enjoy the silence. The power was back on, the circuits were clear, and everything was working exactly the way it should. The end final character count, 63,847 characters. Stvorno. 2025, 11/26. 10 you were 33:52.